Good evening. Tonight on the New RO, tax filers dodge the deadline. The library board clamps down on pornography, and Carleton students salute the big screen. Your news begins right now.
Live from the New RO, this is Ottawa's News.
Time is running out if you haven't filed your income tax. Midnight is the deadline, and New RO videographer Doug Hempstead has more on the last-minute scramble to beat the clock. So, Doug, have you filed yet?
I sure did, James. As it turns out, so did most people here in the valley, although I found a few tonight will be making a late trip to the post office.
I don't think you'd have any sympathy because I guess you've been given enough time. You've had your slips since February 28th or a week after that, so you've had a little bit of time to do them. People generally are ready on time.
Eagle Tax Service here in the Pembroke Mall was open until 9 o'clock tonight, just in case anybody still hadn't filed their tax returns. And they were busy giving people completed forms to pop in the mail before the midnight deadline. And they say people are generally pretty good about completing their taxes, and that's why they weren't expecting anybody in here tonight in a panic.
We usually get a rush around March when people get their slips after the February 28th deadline, and then they rush in to get it done, and then people generally forget. So about last week, they go, oh no, I have to do my taxes, and then they start coming in. So people will just come in to pick up their stuff today.
So you got a smile on your face. You getting a refund this year?
Oh, do I ever? I don't want to say. I would keep it quiet.
You can take me to dinner, maybe.
Yeah, well, a couple of dinners.
I said we weren't going to leave it till the last moment, and here we are again, last minute.
When it comes to your income taxes, you can't procrastinate forever. There is a deadline. But what does that even mean? What happens if you file your taxes on the 1st of May?
There is a penalty, a 5% penalty for not sending it in on time, and then you'll pay interest. So depending on how much you have to pay in, it could add up. If it's only a little, it's not going to add up to a lot, but 5% of, say, $1,000 is quite a bit of money.
And James, the grace period is a little bit longer in your neck of the woods. Anybody who's taking the return direct to the Canada Customs Office at 875 Heron Road can drop it off until 12:30. And there'll even be people at the curbside providing drive-through service. All the conveniences, eh, James?
Nothing less, Doug. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And while we're paying our taxes, the Eves government is talking about how some of them will be spent. Today's speech from the throne opened Ontario's 37th Parliament with promises of more police, better health care, and a new deal for working seniors. The throne speech, delivered by Lieutenant Governor James K. Bartleman, promises a ban on mandatory retirement at age 65. It also calls for more police officers to fight gun crime and child pornography. A crackdown on drunk drivers is on the agenda, with lifetime license suspensions for two-time offenders. In health, there's a pledge to guarantee maximum waiting periods for surgery and diagnostic procedures. And for educators, a plan to allow certain experts to lead classes without teaching certificates. Also in the throne speech, a promise of fast action to lessen the economic fallout from SARS. Today, MPPs approved a summer sales tax holiday for hotels and motels, all to restore business lost during the SARS outbreak. The tax breaks also apply to some tourist attractions, and they run from Thursday to September the 30th. And the SARS threat is receding, but restrictions in local hospitals are also beginning to ease tonight. The New RO's health specialist, Jerry Southcott, has that story.
I think labor is actually one of the most traumatic experiences that a woman can go through, and any support that they can get is, it's beneficial all around. It's beneficial for the mother, for the baby, for their health.
Flavia endured 30 hours of labor before delivering her first child. This time, she was determined childbirth was going to be different.
This time, I'm thinking, well, maybe it could actually be a positive experience. All these women talk about having these great, birthing experience. And I thought, well, if I had a doula, maybe it would be different. You'd have a shorter labor. You'd have all these other benefits.
Benefits the Ottawa Hospital may have overlooked.
The doulas were treated no differently than anyone else who would fit in those categories.
And so they were considered a visitor?
No, they weren't considered a visitor. They were not in a category of worker that we were permitting to enter.
There hasn't been a new case of SARS in Toronto in 10 days. And now the Ottawa Hospital is receiving new directives from the province allowing doulas back into the delivery rooms.
I knew it couldn't go on long because I knew there were too many families that needed us. So I knew that eventually they would be speaking out and we'd have to be heard.
And I think it's important that the public know, too, because it's, one, knowing what the role of a doula is, so that this actually, hopefully, does not happen again.
Jerry Southcott, the New RO, Ottawa.
Tonight, the federal Liberals continue to take heat for their handling of the SARS situation. Here's the New RO's National Affairs Specialist, Peter Chura, with the latest.
Since the health minister clearly ignored the advice,
I guess the opposition are masters at least one thing, and that is the blame game. But
the health minister denied reports she ignored calls from Ontario nearly a month ago for strict SARS screening at airports. Then she appeared later today and announced strict new SARS screening at airports.
Check-in will not take place if that form has not been filled in.
Airline travelers in Toronto and Vancouver will have to pass a SARS questionnaire before being allowed on their flights. Longer lineups and delays are inevitable.
Doesn't come without inconvenience.
The move comes after the WHO dropped its travel advisory against Toronto, and after criticism even from Liberal Cabinet Minister Sheila Copps, that McClellan responded too slowly to the spread of the deadly disease.
Based on our risk assessment, there was no need to.
But McClellan defended earlier decisions not to screen for SARS more rigorously.
The members have asked the Prime Minister and the government to do more.
Also today, Liberal MPs pressed the government to compensate Toronto businesses.
The Greater Toronto Area Caucus has recommended that consideration be given to interest-free loans or government guaranteed loans.
And there is not something that is possible to do under the circumstances.
But Ottawa still rules out a cash bailout for those who lost money during the SARS scare.
he just gives Toronto the finger. That's the story that we got today.
A final decision on federal assistance is still pending. Toronto's mayor says it could take the city's economy a year to recover. Peter Chur, the New RO, Ottawa.
Canada has no new SARS cases tonight, 3 weeks after the last ones were identified. Now the toll of victims has risen to 23, with 2 more succumbing in Toronto. That's also the scene today at a hastily called World Summit on fighting the disease.
The purpose of the meeting is to look at what we've learned over the last 6 to 7 weeks in terms of control of this disease. And I think considering we entered into it not knowing about the disease, not knowing how to control it, both in the community settings and in hospitals, so there's a lot we have to analyze, and then saying from now on in, what do we do in terms of internationally imported cases and continue sort of vigilance within Canada.
Nearly 100 scientists, doctors, and researchers are attending from the U.S., China, and beyond. The SARS Summit continues through tomorrow. At City Hall tonight, an about-face for the Ottawa Public Library Board. It's just voted to restrict access to internet pornography on library computers.
I'm really pleased that the board has decided to implement filter protection for children on the internet. We're using the technology available now that will allow us to prevent kids from stumbling onto inappropriate or illicit sites. And I think the board has responded to an overwhelming outcry from the public that we provide the level of safety that the public thinks they need.
Earlier this month, the Library Board rejected restrictions on internet use. The new plan will require user library card numbers to book time on internet stations. Those numbers will indicate the appropriate access given to the cardholder. For more information on the new measures, you can call the Ottawa Public Library at 236-0303. Again, that's the library at 236-0303. Meanwhile, residents of Bay Ward are coming together tonight to talk about community safety and how to take a bite out of youth crime.
The police are a front line in the defence of the community at large, but the citizenry at large cannot just remain on the sidelines. They have to be involved. They have to speak to one another.
It's something, safety in the neighborhood, and that's what we want to try and do, is promote safety. Where I live, it's a public housing community, and we got a bunch of teenagers hanging around, doing stuff, and we want to try and see if we can get them busy and doing something else.
I'm a strong believer in neighborhood watch. I do believe that it keeps many things under control, and if we take charge of our own communities, we'll have much better communities, because the youth and the crime will know they're being watched from all angles.
The Ad Hoc Public Safety Committee is hoping that meetings like tonight's will get more people involved in neighborhood watch programs. And you know, it's a pretty good night to do a neighborhood patrol. The weather is lovely here in the capital. And let's start with the current conditions to get some evidence of that. Right now we've got cloudy skies over Ottawa. The temperature is still a mild 11 degrees. The winds are out of the southeast at 11 clicks per hour. There's no wind chill or humidex to mention. And the probability of precipitation is 30%.